Thank you, Peter. To make sure that it's not deplatform, I'm going to call you know what. Do you know what I mean by you know what? It's going to be called you know what. And I'm not going to mention any names, but if I do, it'll be you know who. Okay? So it's you know what and you know who. Right? And I'm training myself to do that. Because I've had warnings and I've been deplatformed and arrested. And somebody's been arrested in the last 18 months. Ooh, only one or two. Ooh, the rest of you need to get a life. Get a life. Come on. This is a war we're fighting here. Welcome to part 1 of Disclosure 2021. We're going to ask some awkward questions. Some of them will be rhetorical and won't be answered until we look at the slides and go through them. So we're going to ask and answer some awkward questions, and we're going to drop a truth bomb or two. A truth bomb or two. Part 2 will be 2 of the great deceptions, because there's been so many deceptions visited upon us. This is the apocalypse, folks. This is the revelation of truth, the unveiling of lies. And people like myself are going around the country or countries. Obviously, every country's got their little speakers. Not that little, I'm 5'9", but you know what I mean. Who are going around, who've gone down the rabbit holes, found out some stuff, need to spread the message to the people. Part 3 will be your remedy at law. This is what you'd expect from the people's lawyer, some remedy. Part 4 will be antidotes to evil. Evil's a funny word. We don't mind using the word good, but it's polar opposite evil. Some people go, ooh, what's that? Okay, now if you've been watching Walt Disney all your life, evil is like a monster, isn't it? Someone nasty, psycho, serial killer. Evil is not what we've been led to believe it is, nor is anything what we have been led to believe it is. We have been lied to about absolutely everything. No exceptions. Started when your parents told you that Father Christmas will come down the chimney. Is it any wonder why we reach a certain age and the level of cynicism and skepticism is ingrained in us? Yes? So now if somebody does tell us the truth, we don't believe them. Part 5, glimpsing the future and future-proofing. So we'll hopefully end on a positive note so that we go away with a bit of steely determination to bring in, to co-create, to manifest this future that is ours to create. The alternative is sitting back, continuing to watch TV while this elite bunch of you-know-whos enforce their vision upon us. There are 3 sets of people, 3 groups. The determined to be free, maybe 1/3. I'm going to be very general now, but broad brushstrokes. 1/3 determined to be free and aware of what's going on. 1/3 ditherers. They wear a mask because they don't want to upset anyone and they don't want to be confronted. So those are the ditherers. Then you've got 1/3 hardcore compliant, who probably wear a mask in bed. Part 1. Awkward questions. Were you a live birth or a stillbirth? If you're a live birth, where's your evidence? We'll be looking at the birth certificate. I'm not going to go into any particular subject in any great depth because this has got to be a teaser wake-up call that will inspire you to do more research and to speak to more people about these topics. Okay, it's a long talk, 2.5 hours is a long talk, but it has to cover a lot of ground, so there won't be too much about any one subject, apart from some core themes. Live birth or stillbirth? Well, of course you were a live birth, but your British birth certificate doesn't show that. If you look at it, it says this is not evidence of identity. For those of you who think that the nurse or doctor say, excuse me, missus, we're just going to take the baby for some tests. Well, they're just taking a pinprick. It's the heel pinprick. And the DNA from the blood that they take winds up as a certificate, the live birth certificate, in the Vatican. You don't get to see that. You can see it. You can apply to see it, get a true certified copy. But it's not something that you're familiar with. Question 2. Do you live in a home built by a bank? Not funded by a bank. Built by a bank. Now we're treading on very dangerous territory. Built by a bank. Okay, Obviously you weren't. The bank has plays no part in building homes, but we all happily pay the bank for the privilege of living in our home. Why do we do that? That's a rhetorical question. I'll just leave you with that one for now. What did you learn at school? In a phrase beginning with F. Two-word phrase beginning with F and ending in all. Schooling has gone increasingly and now almost predominantly academic. Look in the Oxford English Dictionary, definition number 2. So I'm not making this up. Definition number 2 of academic is of no practical value. You're being prepared for a career, and career as a verb, to career means to lose control. So you're being given nothing of any practical value that will encourage you to lose control of how your life was meant to be lived. And you'll be given a job, which means JOB, just over broke, never more than 1 month's salary from destitution. Are you in debt? This is linked to the bank issue. Are you in debt? Well, as we'll see in a later slide, money has been abolished. It was abolished nearly 100 years ago. Gold and silver standard abolished. So now we just have trust funds, fiat currency. So you can't have, if you don't have any money, no gold, no silver, you can't have any debt. All you can have is promises. Promises to pay. Look at your banknotes. I promise to pay. Just promises. Those aren't debts, they're just promises. Legally, not biologically, I had one woman screaming at me. She thought it was, people assume that you have a certain meaning. Man, woman, or person. Biologically, she was screaming at me, I've got all the bits, I know I'm a woman. Didn't mean biologically, I meant legally. That will be explored in some depth. What are the only 2 causes of chronic disease? This will be explored as well as one of the truth bombs. The only 2 causes of chronic disease. I'll tell you. Toxicity and deficiency. Some of the content tonight is already featured, some of it, on different videos that are already online. Toxicity, toxemia, too much of the wrong thing. Deficiency, not enough of the right thing. And we'll look at the implications for you know what. Who can legally get into your home without your permission? Basically, no one without a warrant, and no one who is essentially not repossessing it. So the bank with a writ of repossession, landlord after tenant defaults, order for repossession, and gas officer, gas agent, because someone can smell gas. Nobody else in civil matters. Everyone's so frightened. Oh, if I don't pay this bill, if I don't pay that bill, if I don't fill in my census form, if I don't file my tax return, they're going to come and take the kids, they're going to come and get me. That's just the big white bad wolf casting a shadow. Shadows are not real. Shine some light on the shadow. Shadow gone. Threat gone. And we'll look at what enforcement actually means. Etymologically, we'll look at the meant bit later on. Who owns gas, electricity and water? We do. It's our birthright. There's a cosmic triangle. Prime creator, the grantor, the ultimate creator, grantor of space. Some people call that God, or the universe. Creates a space, well, we're living in a space, sacred space, planet Earth. The custodian of planet Earth is Gaia, or Sophia. So we have a grantor of a sacred space, we have a trustee, so this is trust law, trustee of that space, holding that sacred space for the benefit of her boys and girls. That's us. So we're the beneficiary of that sacred space. Therefore, anything that's produced in that sacred space is ours. If somebody usurps our position, seizes or appears to seize that utility or resource and then purports or pretends to sell it to us, which is hilarious because we haven't got any money to pay for it anyway, then they are committing some kind of fraud or breach of trust, depending on your viewpoint. But let's just talk in baby language. They're doing something very naughty, something criminal. And we're being duped. So this talk, most of this talk, is to de-dupe you. That's not even a word, I just made that word up. To de-dupe you. What do you know about complex post-traumatic stress disorder? Well, if you went to school, you've all got it. I've got it. It's not so complex now because once you become conscious of it, it's not complex means you're not aware of it. So we all went to school and we all got our lives degraded, our souls fragmented, our personality corrupted, and that was just the first day at school. There's another 12 years of that. I'm making light of quite a serious issue. The whole point of schooling, if you get the book, the whole point of schooling is that it's designed to make us fit into the system, and we are not allowed to be the fullest versions of who we were meant to be and who we can be, because we wouldn't fit in the system. System needs half people, not whole, or 1/4. What is the essence of evil and what is the true opposite? Well, the essence of evil, as we're experiencing during this period of you-know-what, is control. Control is the essence, control is the essence of evil. There's even a book dedicated to the subject called The End of All Evil. And it describes evil as simply control, manipulation. So the true opposite, so what's the opposite of being controlled and being manipulated? Freedom, being free. Absolutely. So what people like us are about, the ones that we have been waiting for, are opting consciously for freedom. And we're having to deal with the fear and anxiety that brings up, mainly, not exclusively, from our schooling. Because schoolings, in my book, were referred to as like prisons, but now I can take the like word out and schools are prisons. Now, many prisons, because we need to be entrained into the idea of we're not allowed to do spontaneous things, think free thoughts, go where we want and do as we please. The system can't cope with that. So freedom is what we're here. That's all the groups call it now. Freedom Alliance. Yeah, St. Albans, freedom, whatever. It's all, freedom is the key word, isn't it? A lot of us are here because we sense that our freedoms are under threat. Okay, now this is a birth certificate, or a live born certificate from Australia, Victorian Australia. Now I have my posh zapper and I would like to highlight it, but I can't. So I'll point it out. It's bottom right hand corner, it says living or stillborn. And it's circled as living. We don't have that privilege in this country, so we can't prove that we are live born or living boys and girls when we're born. We know we are, so it's no big deal. The status correction that I'm offering, as we'll see later, is more of an attitude, a cognitive correction. As long as you know who you are, then they cannot kid you, they cannot dupe you into being someone or even something else. Truth bomb or two, disease as transmissible pathogen. And that's a question mark there. Can I transmit my headache? Can I transmit my chronic disease, my chronic fatigue? Can I transmit my asthma? I used to have bronchitis as a boy. Recently I had to remind my mum, who's a mask wearer, who was standing back saying, don't get too close, you've been poorly recently. Mum, it's just the same chestiness I had as a kid and you escaped it for 20 years. And she went into cognitive dissonance because although she believes the mainstream narrative, she also knew that I was right. So she wobbled like, The snot experiments. They took some snot from a so-called infected person and injected it into another healthy person. Nothing happening. You can't infect another man, woman, boy or girl. It's not medically possible. So why do we think that we can transmit our chestiness, coughs and fever and any other symptoms of you know what onto someone else? Terrain theory is what I subscribe to, of Monsieur Antoine Béchamp. The germ theory, as has just been suggested, proposed by Louis Pasteur, was seen as far more profitable and a potentially lucrative business venture for the incipient or the growing, emerging pharmaceutical industry. And the Rothschilds and Rockefellers thought, well, if we allow medical schools to teach that men, women, boys and girls are responsible for their own state of health and their own health outcomes, and if they have no toxicity or a toxicity that they can detox easily from, and they're not deficient in any vitamins, minerals and amino acids or whatever, then they're indestructible. So we need another theory. We need to tell them that viruses and germs can get them, attack them. And Pasteur on his deathbed said, I am wrong and Monsieur Béchamp is right. So what is a virus? What actually is a virus? Viruses are dead cell debris. So in other words, it's the outcome. It's not the cause of anything. We're talking about symptoms. Now, I know I'm here as a lawyer, not as a doctor. In fact, if I was here as a doctor, you wouldn't get any of this information. Viruses are the outcome of something having happened to the cell. It's a mess on the floor. Debris. It needs cleaning up. Your good bacteria are the dead cell debris eaters. So if you have too much debris and not enough good bacteria to hoover up the debris, you're in trouble. That's your viral load. Too much debris from cell death and not enough soldiers to wipe up the mess. Cells die, looking at why cells die, either because they are supposed to, which is called apoptosis, or because they have been poisoned, which is called necrosis. Awkward question, and people have asked me this, and it's a perfectly reasonable, intelligent question. Now then, Mr. People's Lawyer Smarty Pants, if terrain theory is correct, how do so many people appear to be infected at the same time and in the same place? Well, I have many answers to that one. My first answer, which only occurred to me a few days ago, one of them had to be the first. Who infected the first? Come on, Smarty. Someone had to be the first. If no one was the first, that means something dropped from the sky or came up from the ground. If they all got infected together at the same time. Let's have a look at what my main two answers are. They are not infecting each other, but affecting each other. In the way that menstruating women that work together have menstruation entrainment. They're affecting each other, influencing each other. And then you've got the panic thrown in as well. Quantum entanglement, the latest science suggests that we can affect each other at a distance. I'm not going to go into too much detail. This is not my expertise, but I have done the research and I'm just laying it out for you to consider. If there's anything that I say that you don't agree with, delete it from your minds. Or do some more research to see whether or not this was correct. Number two of my main two answers, they are also sharing the same toxic environment, which is why they get sick at the same time. I have a little analogy. There's a village with a well. All the villagers drink from that well. One day, for some unknown reason, the well gets poisoned. One by one, or two by two, the villagers go down with sickness. And they start blaming each other. They've no idea that the well is poisoned. But they say, you infected me, I was round at your house, You were puking your guts out, you had a raging fever, and now I'm puking my guts out and I've got a raging fever. I'm not coming round to your house ever again. This is what the mainstream are encouraging us. This is how we are being encouraged to think, to blame each other. It's a continuation of schooling, divide and conquer, but this is on steroids. I can infect you, you can infect me. It's nonsense once you adopt and take on board terrain theory. Utter nonsense. Looking back to the two main causes of disease, toxicity or deficiency. So we're looking at this you-know-what issue that's been affecting us. We're looking at a poisoning, in which case it begs the question, what is the poison? What's the key poison here? Apart from stress and blind panic, obviously. Have a look, do your research for graphene oxide. Graphene oxide is a nanoparticle that can affect neurons. It forms an interface between the artificial and the organic. Because what is being planned, although obviously it won't come about because there'll be too many of us that will stop this, is an internet of bodies. We've all heard of the internet of things, yes? How many of us have heard, I'll be honest with you, I've only picked this phrase up, I only picked this phrase up a few days ago, the internet of bodies, where we are connected to artificial intelligence through things like graphene oxide that have been put in the you-know-what, and graphene oxide that may have been falling from the sky and maybe in lots of other sources. Just have a look at that. So we have a pandemic of toxemia or toxicity. Nothing infectious. Your dis-ease, your symptoms are symptoms. I'm just repeating myself for effect. Your symptoms are the effect of toxicity. And if I become toxic, I will get my own symptoms. And if I was round at your house having dinner, it'll look as though you infected me. I'm repeating myself deliberately because this goes against everything we've ever been taught. And I did say everything we've ever been taught is a lie to suit a non-human or anti-human agenda. We also have a pandemic of deficiency. That goes without saying what it does to someone like me. If you go into a supermarket, you can see tons of food, but hardly any nutrition. To get nutrition, you have to spend an hour or two a day researching it and going out for it. It's like hunter-gathering for people who are personally responsible. It won't drop, the pizza, I shouldn't mention individual companies. Pizza companies, and no, that's also mentioned. You've got to be so careful when you're doing a public speech. They're not going to drop nutrition on your lap. They are commercial interests. They just want your cash. They're not interested in your well-being. Nobody is, apart from potentially you. I've been interested in my own personal well-being for a long time. So on the whole, I am well. And it's not a miracle, it's because I work pretty hard at it. It's like anything. You get out what you put in. It's that simple. So we're deficient in lots of things. And in one of the other sections, I'll go through the kind of things that we're deficient in. We also have a pandemic of, sorry, did I say pandemic? Cut. We also have a pandemic of stress. Massive amounts of stress. Carefully coordinated events. Food shortage might be coming down the pipeline. Petrol shortage. has already come down the pipeline. That sounds like a contradiction in terms, doesn't it? This is how I see the first wave of you know what. One ginormous panic attack. I can't say any more right now, because as you know, I'll be entering deplatforming territory. Panic attack, stress. Stress happens to lower intelligence. Stress takes you from your neofrontal cortex to the back of the brain, the reptilian part of the brain, where you go into fight and flight, in infantile mode. Help, poor me, I need support, I need protection, I need to put my mask on, I can't think straight. Don't be rational. Don't you dare hold up the light newspaper. Don't you dare tell me about UK column, another cult. Not. I'm a massive fan of UK column, by the way, just in case anyone misinterprets that irony. Intelligence goes right down. So does resilience, which of course includes immune function resilience. And empathy goes down. For my research for the book suggested that stress lowers empathy. So to keep children stressed at school, and that's basically all schooling is, it's one stressful event after another, with a few little playtime breaks. It means that children find it difficult to empathise with each other. So if one child gets really, really low marks, you're not going to go up to them and say, that's really tough, that. Do you want to talk about it? You're going to be happy that their marks were lower than yours because it gets you off the hook. That's where empathy shoots right down. You try going up to someone in a mask because they are chronically stressed, that's why they've got a mask on, and expect them to say, oh, how do you do it? How do you live in this period of you know what, with so many dangers out there? How can you be brave enough not to wear a mask? Tell me how you do it. You're my hero. Just tell me, how is it done? I bet no one's ever had that experience. Even if they tried to tell you, you wouldn't be able to hear what they were saying. And if you're lip reading, completely forget that. So what's more likely to happen, it's happened to me, is you get some kind of aggressive posture. No one has yet taken the mask off to insult me, but that day can't be far away. Something else lowers intelligence, and again, as the author of a book on education and how unsuitable, inappropriate schooling is for pretty much all, not all, but most children. Something else lowers intelligence? There you go. Spoiler alert. Schooling. Now, is that my opinion? Well, it might be, but I've got some backup here. Let's have a look at my backup. NASA would back me up on this. They had a study, longitudinal, which means that they just took a number of boys and girls, it was 1,500, and just followed them over a period of time. And they did a test every 5 years. So the first test was, well, in fact, all the tests were for creative genius, level of creative genius. At the age of 5, so it was a 10-year longitudinal study, at the age of 5, I'll show you the outcome, 100% of boys and girls were classified by NASA, so it's not some hippie organisation, NASA, as creative geniuses. That's every single boy or girl at the age of 5. Okay, we can't cope with that as a system. We need to send them to school. We can't have them being geniuses. 5 years after they've started school, same test or similar test for creative genius. Now it's half or kind of a little bit brain dead, certainly not creative geniuses. And by the age of 15, 10 years after they start school, 99% just a little bit brain dead, 1% are still flying the flag for humanity. So I'm not making this up. And obviously, there are many other metrics that we could apply, but I'm just giving you a taste of what has been proven. Well, you can't say this necessarily proves anything, but it's very interesting and it supports what I'm saying. Do you recognise any of these? If you've got complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you may, or they may, if we're going to do the us and them, which I don't like to do, but mask wearers will be wearing a mask, some of them out of fear of ridicule. fear of the ridicule of not wearing a mask. And again, something often, not always, but often acquired at school. Fear of authority. Yes, you may have tyrannical parents, but again, at school, this is where we are inculcated. Fear of authority is how schooling maintains order and discipline. And it prepares the young boy or girl for later in life, sets them up to be reduced to rubble by anyone in a uniform. And we'll look at that as we go along. Fear of speaking up. Back in the day, well, back in the early 2020s or middle 2020, when You Know What first arrived, and some of us are desperate. We've done the research. We're desperate to help people who can't see clearly. They're in reptilian brain. Help them to give them some alternative information. And I got a microphone and a speaker, got out there. It then led me to doing it indoors as well, which is why I'm here tonight. And I kept having these organised these rallies in Manchester, and I kept offering in the early days, so we're talking July, August, September, other people said, come on, please, don't let me do all the speaking, come up to the microphone. No offers. Then after 3 or 4 months, just, one 12-year-old boy or one very nervous man or one very diffident woman. But it was like pulling teeth. So this is schooling, not just schooling, but we don't have a voice. We don't feel that we deserve a voice. And even those people that can be eloquent, their voice has been limited and they squeak into the microphone. So we have, and this is all part of the complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. They're working on our minds. And as Steve Biko said, the South African freedom fighter, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Look inside your mind, see what you find, and I'm not a poet, so I'm not creating a kind of limerick here. See what you find, and if it doesn't serve you, go about changing it. Status correction, some of you may have heard so many things or read so many things or watched so many things, studied so many things about status correction. Well, in my opinion, status correction equals changing your mind. Humanity's at the crossroads. The central column is all about where we are now, kind of carbon-based Homo sapiens sapiens, faced with possible extinction, and we are being warned because zero carbon emissions are being encouraged. Well, who emits carbon? I'm emitting it right now. In which case, if carbon emissions come to zero, we have 2 escape routes. One is downwards into Silicon Valley, where we can take you-know-what and become transhuman with our soul in eternal capture. And I know psychics who've told me that you-know-what does trap the soul. And I'm having debates with psychic mediums about whether that's an eternal thing or whether there's a remedy for that. That's way out of law, isn't it? That's into the realm of spirit. This is how broad this is. This is why I'm talking not just here as a lawyer, I'm here as a messenger on many, many levels, because we are multi-dimensional beings. And I couldn't do a one-dimensional talk. I would feel like I was cheating myself, and I would feel like I was cheating you. Silicon Valley is awaiting. There'll be a lot of stress for Homo sapiens sapiens with all these shortages and false flags. So you can opt for a more comfortable life, live in a smart home with a smart meter, smart city, smart TV, smart fridge, become part of the Internet of Things and Internet of Bodies, and you will be living a blissful life. Sounds great, doesn't it? One problem, your soul won't be there to experience that great joy. It'll be soulless, clinical, sterile. Most of us here have opted for a different plan. We've opted to either be part of or to pave the way for the crystal generation, the shifting generation, the ascending generation. Some of these children, the crystals, are being born now. To get carbon to become crystal or diamond, you have to bash it, compress it, don't you? This is the tribulation. We're being bashed. So celebrate, please celebrate the stress, the trauma, the troubles, because it's your test, it's our test of resilience. Pass the test and you end up in heaven with a crystalline structure, Homo Angelicus, lighter than you were before, and you'll be ascending with the planet. If this sounds a bit woo-woo, well, what can I say? It's happening whether you like it or not. The planet is ascending, and you can tell she's ascending because to ascend you have to shake off the baggage. She's shaking off the baggage. Tsunamis, volcanoes, gosh knows what. So there's going to be a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of traumatic experiences. But as long as you stay in your center, know who you are, you will be relatively immune to them, because most of them will be working on your mind. So this is a war to desecrate, destroy, or control your holy land. And I hope those at the back can see that there's a W. Can you see that there's a W in holy? Because holy without a W makes no sense to me. Holy without a W has been used to deflect from the true meaning of whole, holy. Holy with a W means whole. Your holy land, which I'm standing up in now and you're sitting in, is your multi-dimensional being. Physical body, emotional body, spiritual body, mental body. It's the whole lot, the whole gamut. Keep that intact and you win the Armageddon battle. Armageddon is not taking place or won't take place in Jerusalem or Mecca or St. Albans. It will take place in your body, in your mental structure. So if you're banishing your demons, letting truth and light come in, you're winning the war. That's how we win the war. So when I hear, for example, I read today of a group of, they were described as vigilantes who kidnapped a boy or girl. I don't know whether it was a boy or girl, child, let's say, generically, with the benevolent intent to prevent the child from suffering more satanic ritual abuse. But there's no evidence from the article that they actually knew the boy or girl. They had good intentions, but at the end of the day, they scared the boy or girl to death because the boy or girl doesn't know why they're being taken or where they're being taken to. So this group, who are now behind bars, have lost the spiritual plot. It's not about saving anyone from anyone. It's about staying in your center. So when we go out on the streets, if I have anything to do with it, I just say, please, no shouting, no swearing, no insulting. No one is to blame for anything. We're just here to provide an optic of common sense for the people who've lost the plot. And I recommend that as a strategy. You won't get arrested. If you're just there as a peaceful optic, peaceful, not even protest, protesting is for children, peaceful gathering, you're untouchable, as we'll look at a bit later. And if you've got the personal protection card, you'll see how untouchable you are. It's only if you're a targeted individual, and I'm probably dangerously close to that category, that you that they might lift you, come what may, however lawful you are. But if you're simply there, you've got no record of whipping up protest, then follow the protocols. There will be a new version of the card soon, so watch out for that. And it's called the, I don't think it's got a title, but it's a white card. You should all have one each, but if you haven't, if there's any left, they're in reception. And it will give you an idea of your rights, the best way to avoid arrest. It features in other videos, so I'm not going to go into detail now. And it also gives a list of the crimes that overzealous officers can commit. So this is a war on your holy land. This is the holy war. This is it. They've now got the tools to desecrate 7.75 billion holy lands in a very short space of time. They've never had that before, but they've got it now.